Decisions to make. In early January, the Capitol was stormed by Trump supporters. 5 people died, including a police officer. A month on, Donald Trump faces an impeachment trial again, this time accused of inciting this violence. And whether guilty
isn't their Republican Party anymore. This is Donald Trump's Republican Party.
The world is watching what the Republicans do about Trump. This impeachment trial is the Democrats seeking to sanction him.
That comes closest to the scenario the headline is describing. A moment that genuinely produced an eruption in the Capitol that featured votes from a group of Republicans that genuinely shocked the political world, and that was the most bipartisan presidential accountability vote in the history of the Republic. The second impeachment trial of Donald Trump following the January 6th Capitol attack produced a 57-43 conviction vote, 57 senators, including 7 Republicans, voting to convict a former president of incitement of insurrection. 7 Republican senators, Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Ben Sasse, Bill Cassidy, Richard Burr, and Pat Toomey, made the specific constitutional judgment that the conduct described in the article of impeachment met the constitutional standard for conviction and removal and put their names on the record in the conviction column. That was the most bipartisan presidential impeachment conviction vote in American history. It was a specific eruption of Republican defection that the headline is evoking, and it was also simultaneously and unavoidably 10 votes short of the 2/3 supermajority that the Constitution requires for conviction and removal.
But for years there has been the idea that Trump isn't really who Republicans are. Have a listen to Mitch McConnell.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people.
But if that's the case, why is the party still dealing with him now? It may be a straight political calculation to vote with the Democrats, and that looks unlikely, because this is a story of the backlash that didn't last.
Now look, I want to talk to you today about something that happened in Chicago that most people are going to remember for the wrong reasons. On June the 18th, 2026, Barack Obama opened his presidential center on the south side of Chicago. $850 million, nearly 20 acres, a museum tower that rises 225 feet into the skyline. And what Barack did on that stage, standing in front of thousands of people with the nation watching, was not just cut a ribbon. He made a choice, a deliberate, careful, unmistakable choice to talk about the future of American democracy at a moment when the very idea of democracy is under more pressure than most of us have seen in our lifetimes. Now, I was there. Hillary and I were there. George W. Bush was there. Joe Biden was there. 3 former presidents sitting together on a stage in the June heat. And I want you to hold on to that picture for a moment, because who was not on that stage tells you just as much as who was. And we'll come back to what that absence really means in a moment. But first, I want you to understand something. What Barack Obama said in that speech was not an accident. Every word was chosen. Every silence was intentional. And if you only saw the headlines, if you only caught the clips, you missed the most important part of what actually happened in Chicago. Because this was not just about a building. This was about whether the things we say we believe in as Americans still mean anything at all. Let me tell you what it felt like standing there. You had Bruce Springsteen, you had Stevie Wonder, you had Jennifer Hudson, and Common and the Roots closing the whole thing out with Higher Ground. It was a celebration, absolutely. But underneath the music and the applause, there was something heavier in the air, something everybody could feel, but nobody wanted to name out loud. See, when George W. Bush opened his presidential library back in 2013, he invited Barack Obama. That's what you do. That's the tradition. Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. You invite the sitting president because the institution is bigger than any one person's politics. That's how it's always worked. But Barack made the decision not to invite President Trump to this opening. Now, I want to be honest with you about that because it's complicated. And I say that as somebody who was sitting right there. The south side of Chicago, Juneteenth weekend, an $850 million center built in Jackson Park, a historically black neighborhood designed to be a gathering place for the community. The timing was deliberate, the location was deliberate, and the guest list was deliberate too. This was not an oversight, this was a statement. And whether you agree with that statement or not, you've got to understand what led to it, because context matters. It always matters. Here's the honest truth about what Barack said from that stage. He never mentioned Donald Trump by